Hey y'all, my name is Kayla and welcome to my cozy chaotic corner of the internet. In today's video, we are going to be delving into some comfy, cozy mysteries. This is a genre that I feel like it's interesting. It's interesting, and we'll get more into it later on in the video. But I did want to note this is part of a little series I'm doing where I'm trying out books from varying genres. And I'm kind of just breaking down my thoughts and opinions about the books and my thoughts and opinions about the genre themselves. With all of that noted, today we're going to be delving into On What Grounds, Death by Dumpling, Sugar Cookie Murder, and what's the other one? Moonlight, Marshmallows, and Manslaughter. That's a title if I've ever heard one. I kind of want to explain what qualifies a book to be a cozy mystery for me personally. First and foremost, a cozy mystery typically does have at least one person dying. Usually it's no more than one person who is no longer with us. From there, I think what truly makes it a cozy mystery is it's not high stakes. Like you have your like neighborhood watch, they're the ones solving the crime. And I think you're going to see that reflected in all of these books where it's like a random lady who's been solving crimes in their town, or, a group of friends who are solving crimes in their town. Something happens and then like this ragtag team of people are solving the crime. And there isn't really any high stakes. I mean, obviously there's high stakes because someone is no longer with us. So I think that's kind of really what makes a cozy mystery. And it's more about the community element and like working together and less about the actual murder itself. The book always revolves heavily around the community and the bonding of the people trying to solve the murder. This is editing, Kayla. I realized as I was putting this video together that I never actually filmed reactions for two of these books. So, because you don't really get my reactions and kind of get a general gist about what the book is going to be about before I hop into the rating, I thought I would do just a quick read of the book's summary, so at least you have a gist of what we're delving into. So to start, we have Death by Dumpling by Vivien Chien. The last place Lana Lee thought she would ever end up is back at her family's restaurant, but after a brutal breakup and a dramatic workplace walkout, she figures that helping wait tables is her best option for pulling her life back together, even if that means having to put up with her mother, who is dead set on finding her a husband. Lana's love life soon becomes yesterday's news once the restaurant's property manager, Mr. Fang, turns up dead after a delivery of shrimp dumplings from Ho Lee. But how could this have happened when everyone on the staff knew Mr. Fang's severe, life-threatening shellfish allergy? Now, with the whole restaurant under suspicion for murder and the local media in a feeding frenzy, it's up to Lana to find out who's behind Fang's killer order before her own number is up. For characters, I gave it a 4. I actually really loved this cast of characters. For anyone who doesn't know, Death by Dumpling is set in like a little China. We had our, first generation Chinese American daughter who is like, trying to become more modern in their times. We had the parents we had the mom actually, who I think she was actually a pretty hip Asian mom, where we actually had I think the dad was German. He was for sure a white dude. So we had a white dad. You saw the extreme dynamic of like the first generation or second generation American children, and then like the older parents from China. And it was just interesting to kind of like see that dynamic and see how it was portrayed in this book. I personally grew up with a lot of Asian friends, so there is that extreme dynamic of more like the traditional matriarchs and patriarchs of the family, and then you have like the younger generation who are more westernized. So it was fun to see that dynamic written out in a book. For writing, I gave it a 3. It was just average. Nothing about it really stood out, but nothing about it was horrible. For plot, I gave it a 4. I actually really enjoyed this plot. It was interesting that there was a guy who died from a seafood allergy in his dumpling. and then kind of see how that all played out. There was our main character who hasn't been in a relationship for a while, and everyone kept egging her on about getting in a relationship, which again, like, it's a cozy mystery because we have these dynamics of like, hey, we know you're trying to solve this murder, but also, have you seen that hottie cutie hottie detective man over there? Originality, I gave it a 4. I've never read any, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, have there been death by food situations before when it comes to cozy mysteries? Yes. Have I seen it by dumplings? No. Rereadability, I gave it a 3. Is it likely that I would reread this one in particular? No. I actually don't know if Death by Dumpling is part of like a larger series or if it was just kind of like a standalone situation. But honestly, I think out of all the books on this list for cozy mystery, Death by Dumpling or Vivien Chen's work, I would love to delve more into this cast of characters. I thought they were so fun, so dynamic. I loved this cast the most out of all. Emotional impact, gave it a 3. Just average. Resolution, I gave a 4. I actually really like the way that this book wrapped itself up. I thought it was so fascinating, kind of the ins and outs of who did what and what was connected to who. Death by Dumpling actually had kind of the most dynamic flow chart. Like, I would say it was the closest to an actual mystery, but the reason it falls under the cozy category is it felt low stakes because of the interactions between all of the characters in that community aspect. For pacing, I gave it a 5. I love the pacing of this. Just kept the ball rolling. Loved it. And overall enjoyment, I did give it a 4 for overall enjoyment, which brings our final score for Death by Dumplings to a 3.78. Up next, we have On What Grounds by Cleo Coyle. Claire Cozy used to manage New York City's historic Village Blend coffee house until she opted for quieter pastures and a more suburban life. But after 10 years away, she's back in action and back to the grind, serving up steaming hot caffeine 1 cup at a time. With a sprawling rent-free apartment directly above the coffee house, her cat Java by her side, and plenty of redecorating ideas, Claire is thrilled to return to work until she discovers the assistant manager dead in the back of the store, coffee grounds strewn everywhere. NYPD Detective Mike Quinn finds no signs of forced entry or foul play and deems the whole thing an accident. But despite the attractive investigator's certainty, Claire isn't convinced. Now, if she wants to get to the bottom of things, she'll have to do some sleuthing of her own before anyone else ends up in hot water. On What Grounds by Cleo Coyle. This book, you really gotta be invested in coffee information, coffee puns, knowing the ins and outs of coffee. Like, you gotta be there for the coffee, because coffee is so heavily woven into this story from beginning to end. Our main character, I swear she spends an entire chapter talking about like the ins and outs of coffee and what makes a good coffee versus what makes a bad coffee. So like, you really gotta be in it for the coffee, okay? With that noted, for characters, I gave it a 4. I actually really enjoyed the characters. I loved that our main character was quirky in her coffee-loving ways. I enjoyed her random side tangents about coffee. I thought it was hysterical that she is solving a murder with her ex-husband, and their daughter just brought home a new boyfriend, and the dad hates the boyfriend, and the mom's like, yo, boyfriend is literally you reincarnate, but whatever. Writing, I gave it a 5. I thought it was so witty. I thought it was so fun. Again, really got to be there for the coffee. And there were a few times where I was rolling my eyes about the whole coffee factor. But once you kind of get over that and you understand that that's the whole shtick of this mystery series, it's all good. For plot, I gave it a 4. I actually really like this plot. And this will play into my resolution rating, but I did not see that resolution coming. It was like, what? Okay, anyways. Originality, I gave it a 4. I mean, I've never read a cozy mystery that is heavily involved around coffee. Granted, this is a part of a series, so maybe that shtick would get like boring over time. But for me, reading just one-off, I enjoyed it. Rereadability, I gave this a 3 for rereadability because it was just like, I think with all cozy mysteries, there isn't enough high stakes elements to really want to go back and catch those Easter eggs or those clues you didn't catch right off the bat. Emotional impact, I gave it a 3. Resolution though, 5. I thought, like, I literally did not see, it was wild. It was a crazy, like, I can't even talk. It was so fast paced. It was so quick, but it wasn't as though it was an action, fast paced type situation. It was wild. And for pacing, 5. So quick, not too slow, even with all the random coffee jargon. I thought it had a really good flow to it. And then overall enjoyment, I gave this a 5. So our final rating for On What Grounds is a 4.22. Okay, y'all, I'm like a quarter of the way through Sugar Cookie Murder by Joanne Fluke. Maybe I'm too used to like high octane mysteries and thrillers, but so far it feels like we're just in a housewife gossip column. The only thing that's associated with like a mystery is the fact that our main character Hannah has some sort of relationship with the town's detective. I can't remember his name, but like they have something going on, and that's literally it. Like, nothing about this is really holding me in. And however, it is building up to like this big Christmas party where everyone's like trying recipes for a cookbook. It's very Minnesota. This is based in Minnesotan. This is based in Minnesota, and it's a very Minnesotan thing to have a cookbook that involves submissions. That was a big thing back in the day. I don't know if that was a big thing across the world, but for sure I have seen so many cookbooks based out of Minnesota that had just like Mary Beth's hash browns down the road in the cookbook, okay? So they're all submitting the recipes, and then what they did was they just like doled out the recipes to other people so that other people can try the recipe, and you can see like, is this actually a good recipe, or is it just a good recipe when you make it type thing. And so they're holding this big Christmas gala party event thing where everyone's going to be tasting everyone else's recipes. So that's like the big event. And I have a hunch we're going to get our murder mystery element through that thing, but we're just like taking so long to get there. Like, I'm literally almost a quarter of the way into the book and nothing has really happened aside from us learning the ins and outs of all the characters, which, why am I complaining about learning about the characters? Again, I think I'm just too used to like high octane mysteries and thrillers where like the thing kind of happens and then you get to learn the backstories. Whereas like in this, we're getting to learn the backstories and then I think the thing is gonna happen. Which is interesting because the other two cozy mysteries I read, the thing happened, but caveat to that statement, the two other cozy mysteries I read so far are more recently published. So I think that's just like the dynamic of mysteries nowadays is like the thing happens and then you spend the entire book figuring out the thing, where I believe Sugar Cookie Murder was published at least in the 90s, early 2000s. This was published in the early 2000s. So I think this is just a piece of its time where you actually got to know the people, the town, the characters more before the event happened. So, I mean, I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's just different. I'm not used to this style of mystery where we're getting to know the cast before the event. I'm so used to like the event happening and then we get to know the cast. How the heck am I only 25% of the way through? Because this is how far I am in the book. Like, if you look at the full book, like, this is not 25%, but this is all recipes. Like, the entire other half of the book is recipes. Oh my god, that's so cute. Also, Joanne Fluke actually has a lot of her entire catalog is cute little food mysteries. Actually, we should have her read and bake along. Oh my god, yes. And then we can like read a couple of her books and bake selections from her books. I love it. Okay, y'all. So I'm almost 50% of the way through this book. And I think like a chapter or two ago is when we actually discovered the body of a woman. And like, yeah, someone passed away. This is someone's deceased, no longer around. And yet everything's kind of like business as usual. There's a big snowstorm. The mayor just made an announcement. It's like, hey guys, y'all should probably stay here. Like, we'll just bunker down in this like town square, whatever building they're in. He's like, kids, go to like the little play area. Teenagers who partake in this youth group, go help take care of the little kids. Adults will have dancing and desserts next. And like all of that happened after we found the dead body. Now, to be fair though, I don't think it's widespread news that Brandy is no longer with us, obviously, but it's still very odd how like everything is going about like, oh, there's a body. Okay, guys, we're bunkering down for the snowstorm. I would say this is the epitome of a cozy mystery, because is there a mystery? Yes, there's a missing like antique knife. Suspicious. There's a dead body. What was that knife used for? And outside of that, it's just kind of been like the, you know, musings of a small town. So this is like very cozy vibes, very cozy winter Christmas vibes in Minnesota. But it's interesting that while there's a murder mystery element going on, like that's not the forefront of this book in any capacity. I'm more invested in Hannah and the detective's relationship than I am in this actual mystery. And they have a very odd relationship. It's very odd. It's like you wouldn't think they're an item. And I think they're in like the beginning stages of being an item, which maybe that's why it feels that way. But like I'm more invested in that than the dead body outside, which is a first for a mystery for me. I've officially decided that I am not a fan of this Mike dude. Mike is the detective, by the way. Kind of a douchebag. Kind of really don't like him. So I think Hannah needs to leave him, no matter how hot he is, and find someone else. It's kind of condescending to her. It's just not cute. It's not cute. Thankfully, Hannah is realizing that Michael is a sexist douche canoe. Love that. She literally thought it in chapter 19. But also Norman. There's a guy named Norman. I haven't talked about him yet, but he's a photographer. I think he's also either like a dentist or a doctor or something like that. And he's just like, I think Hannah will eventually end up with Norman in the end. This is like a huge ass series, by the way. I think her and Norman are gonna be a thing, but I think she's gonna have to struggle with Mike for a little bit, even though in this book she literally just called him a sexist a-hole. I don't think she said a-hole, but she definitely called him a sexist human being, because he's leaving his Hummer with them while him and someone else go to the police station with the not the suspect, but the person who confessed in hand. He's leaving his Hummer there and he's like, yeah, just find a dude who can manage to drive my Hummer if like anyone needs to leave. And she's like, a man? As if I can't handle driving this vehicle. So snaps for Hannah for not just being some aloof little girl. Love that for her. Okay, one thing I totally forgot that happened in this story. At the very beginning, Mike was talking about his secretary, and apparently they have a very close relationship. I mean, she is his secretary, but Hannah got a little jealous of this secretary. And Mike had noted that his secretary makes the best brownies ever, and they're hot. As in, like, really, really good hot. So after Hannah heard him say this, she was a little petty and made him some hot jalapeno brownies and just dropped it off at the police station, and like they're still at his desk in his drawer. I have a feeling they're gonna come back to haunt us because it was kind of like not a big deal in the beginning, but it was kind of like a highlighted moment for like the first, I would say 30% of the book. So yeah, I'm just curious to see what happens with these hot brownies. This man liked the jalapeno brownies. I hate him. I hate him. Let's talk about the rating for Sugar Cookie Murder. For characters, I gave it a 3. They were just average characters. None of them really stood out to me. Honestly, no. The one character, oh my god, I couldn't stand him. I couldn't stand him. And he's our main character's love interest. Oh my god. The detective dude was such a misogynistic asshole. And the crazy thing is, our main female lead, who's in a relationship with this dude, kept calling it out. She kept calling it out. In her internal monologue, she kept calling it out. I'm like, okay. I almost feel invested enough to maybe not read the whole series, but definitely read like the books after it, just to see how that relationship alone plays out. Because also we had our little dentist dude, Norman. Okay, y'all, I need to change the character rating. I'm too invested. I'm gonna give characters a 4. But we also had Norman. Norman was our dentist. We loved Norman. We need our main female lead to end up with Norman. That's what needs to happen. For writing, gave it a 4. Plot, I gave it a 3. It was just kind of average. I wouldn't say, when it comes to plot, I was more invested in like the character relationship than the actual like murder element, which I guess was good in a sense because a lot of this book dealt more with like the community aspect and the inner happenings of all of the people than it really actually dealt with the murder. The murder didn't even happen until I think 50, maybe even further past % in the book. Originality, I gave it a 4. It's a cozy mystery. Rereadability, I gave a 3. Would I want to reread this one? No. But like with all the other ones, I wouldn't mind delving into this series further, especially beyond Sugar Cookie Murder, because I need to know what happens with old girl and the dentist. Emotional impact, I gave a 3. Didn't love it, didn't hate it. It was a 3. Resolution, I gave a 2. Oh, I hate saying that. I gave it a 2 based on when it comes to mysteries in general, the resolution has a lot to do with who did it, how they did it, how it was solved. And for this one, like everyone ended up happily ever after and it was an accident. Pacing, I gave it a 4. Honestly, pacing, I don't know. That's the hard part because I love mysteries where we get like into the nitty gritty of like the mystery right off the rip. And for this one, it took so long to get into like the murder part and like the solving of the murder part. But it's not like the part that we weren't in the murder element was slow. I just wasn't used to that style. I don't know. I'm gonna change pacing to 3. We're gonna give it a 3. And overall enjoyment, I gave it a 4. I had a good time with it. It was a different structure than what I'm used to, but that doesn't change my overall enjoyment factor and the fact that I need to know what happens with the detective and the dentist. But that brings our final rating for Sugar Cookie Murder to a 3.33. Okay, y'all, so I'm currently in the middle of Moonlight, Marshmallows, and Manslaughter. And I am like 60% of the way through this book, and could I tell you our main character's name? No. However, I know her husband's name is Hank, and I know that there's a woman named Dottie, because of course there's a woman named Dottie in a cozy mystery series set in the South. Of course there is. Anyways, it's kind of super funny. So our main character, her husband, he was a park ranger. This is all set in like a national park or maybe a state park. It's set in a park. the big kerfuffle is that there was a preservation there. What am I trying to say? Anyways, there was a person who was trying to preserve, obviously, the wildlife. But then there was a guy who she had a very heated discussion with at the beginning of the book. And he is a part of a company that is saying that they want to build stuff. I don't remember the exact term, but they want to build things while still maintaining like that conservation, preservation ethos, like doing it responsibly. Heated discussion between those two. Next day, he's still around. I think his name was Mark. He's around because she's supposed to be giving a speech, a talk, a little chit chat. And she is nowhere to be found. Unfortunately, she is found. And she's no longer with us. I think the obvious choice is this Mark dude. But I also think because it's so obvious that either it's for sure gonna be him or like not even close. And as of right now, I have no friggin' clue who it could potentially be. Anyways, the whole reason I hopped on here, I wasn't going to give like a whole synopsis of what's currently going on, but hey, here we are. Hank, and our main character, Hank was a park ranger, and now he works for I don't think he works for the police department, but I think he works with a friend who has started like an investigation company, something like that. So he now works with him. And the funny thing is, his wife, who just works at the national park, she is the one solving this crime, apparently. And he literally, they're sitting there about to make dinner, and he's like, so, tell me about your findings. Tell me about how things are going. How's your investigation? And I'm just like, homie, she's doing your job right. But I also think it's like really sweet because I feel like oftentimes in like these cozy mysteries, the detectives are always annoyed that like the town sleuth is helping out, and he's like all about it. That's my girl, and I'm here for a supportive husband. We like Hank. Okay, that's all. That's literally the only reason I hopped on here, was to be like, I love that they're about to make dinner and he's asking her how her investigation is going. Moonlight, Marshmallows, and Manslaughter. This was such a cute little book. The one thing I really liked about this book, and it is a part of a larger series. In fact, I think it's like book 30 out of a cozy mystery series. That's another thing. Cozy mysteries, like these authors, I swear they're cranking out books left, right, and center. They have 20 million books. Like their main oh, that's another thing. Cozy mysteries, it's usually main female characters who are the ones solving the mystery. But their main female leads are just like, I don't know. What type of towns are y'all living in that you need to be solving a crime every 5 seconds, you know? But with that noted, for characters, I did give it a 3. I felt like they were just kind of like there was nothing really too dynamic. Honestly, Dottie was probably the most dynamic character, and even then she was kind of just like your stereotypical older lady who's not like, she's not the crotchety old lady type, but you know, you've seen her before. Next, for writing, I gave this a 4. Again, for writing, I'm almost always going to give something a 4 or a 5, unless it's just either way too obtuse or a writing style I don't like, or something that's a little overly complicated, or even sometimes something that's a little too simplified. So 4s and 5s you will likely see from Cayla when it comes to writing. Plot, I gave it a 3. I felt like it was just like all right. It was an average all right plot line. We have someone who is no longer with us, and then they solve the crime. I mean, it's kind of gonna be across the board when it comes to cozy mysteries. That plot line is just kind of average because they all generally have the same plot structure, if you know what I mean. Originality, I gave this one a 3. There's nothing wrong with 3s, okay, y'all? There's nothing wrong with 3s. For rereadability, I gave this one a 3. I thought I might pick this one up again, but again, there's like probably more than 30 books in this series. So if I really wanted to like delve back into these characters and this town and this setting, I would probably just pick up a different one from the catalog of books that Tanya Kappes has. Emotional impact, I gave it a 2. There's like literally at no point was I emotionally invested in the characters or the storyline. I was just like, this is just a fun, cute little time, you know? Resolution, I gave a 3. It actually kind of resolved itself in a very weird way. I almost felt as though we spent too much time with the characters trying to solve the crime, that when we solved the crime, it was just kind of like, didn't see that. The solving came out of left field. It was very abrupt. It took no effort at all. This dude just like confesses and you're like, what? Okay. And it was over the dumbest thing. Okay. The dumbest thing. Pacing, I gave it a 5. It was quick, snappy, not too quick though, not too slow. We love just a quick rolling storyline. And overall enjoyment, I gave it a 4. I had a good time. I didn't hate it. I didn't absolutely think it was absolutely phenomenal, amazing, but it was a good romp. It wasn't average. It wasn't phenomenal. It was a good romp. That's what a 4 is. But for final rating, Moonlight, Marshmallows, and Manslaughter got a 3.33. Well, y'all, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed those breakdowns of the books. Let me know if you like that structure. I actually have really been enjoying how I'm rating books this year, because last year, if you didn't know, every single book I read, I just use full star, whole star reviews. And I don't know, I always felt like I could have been more, I don't know, specific. And kind of with this rating system, I actually really enjoy the like additional breakdown, because sometimes I'm like, that was a 3-star book, or sometimes I'm like, that was a 5-star book off knee-jerk reaction, but then actually going through all like the different categories and really thinking about like, how did I feel about this category? How did I feel about this category? I like being a little more analytical with my ratings, because I just like being analytical in various aspects of my life. So to be able to really like hone in and break down how I truly felt about a book and a story, I feel like it's making my rating more intentional, and it's making me really think back on the book I read instead of just like flying through books and just like being like, oh, 5 stars, 4 stars, 3, you know? I don't know. Maybe that's just a Cayla thing. But with all of that noted, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. Don't forget to subscribe to the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.